Now, there's two parts to Oprah Winfrey that I haven't really spoken about publicly. The other part with Oprah Winfrey is, yeah, you let me get thrown under the bus and you said nothing. The other part is you mess with my family. You mess with my mother, my father. She called me about my brother.
For decades, Oprah was the undisputed High Priestess of Truth, the woman who could make a book a bestseller or a celebrity a saint with a single nod. But the winds have shifted. Between viral podcast tell-alls and messy production disputes, the cultural consensus is cracking. A new wave of stars is breaking the silence, suggesting that the Queen of Media isn't just a host, she's a gatekeeper whose time is up. Is Oprah falling, or is the pedestal finally breaking? Monique, the difficult truth. For a long time, the industry tried to gaslight us into thinking Monique just lost her mind.
Just one of many balls being held all over Hollywood tonight. Monique, in Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. And the winner is Monique.
After she snatched that Oscar for Precious, she basically vanished. And the whisper campaign was loud. She was difficult, ungrateful, and a nightmare to work with. But if you look at the receipts now, that difficult label looks less like a personality trait and more like a corporate hit job. Monique wasn't being a diva. She was being a businesswoman who refused to do a global press tour for the low price of $0. The beef started because Monique wouldn't fly to Cannes to promote the movie for free. To her, it was pay me for my labor. To Oprah and Tyler Perry, it was how dare you not appreciate this platform we gave you. This is where the Auntie Oprah mask started to slip for a lot of people. Monique alleges that Oprah helped label her blacklisted, effectively stalling her career for a decade while the rest of Hollywood looked the other way. In a world where we're all told to know our worth, Monique actually did it, and she got punished for it in front of the whole world. But it wasn't just about the money, it was the betrayal. Monique went scorched earth when she revealed that Oprah had her family members on the show to discuss her childhood trauma without a heads up. That's when the conversation shifted from business to character. It painted Oprah as a mogul who would trade a sister's healing for a viral moment and a bump in the Nielsens. For the fans who saw Oprah as a maternal figure, this was a cold shower. It suggested that at the end of the day, Harpo is a machine, and if you aren't a cog that fits, you get crushed. The wild part? The culture finally caught up to her. After years of being called crazy, Monique's demands for fair pay and respect don't sound like a meltdown anymore, they sound like a manifesto. Every time she wins a settlement or gets a standing ovation now, it's a middle finger to the idea that Oprah's word is law. Monique proved that you could survive outside the Oprah ecosystem, even if you had to crawl through the dirt to do it. She was the first one to publicly say that the Queen's help often comes with a price tag that's way too high. She didn't just burn the bridge, she nuked it. And in doing so, she gave everyone else permission to stop pretending that everything Oprah touches turns to gold. For Monique, the fall started the moment she realized that Oprah's version of empowerment didn't include a black woman who dared to say no to the Queen. It was messy, it was loud, and it was the first real crack in the foundation of the Oprah empire. Monique opened the door, but Katt Williams took a sledgehammer to the whole house. Katt Williams, the great industry expose. If Monique cracked the glass, Katt Williams came through with a literal sledgehammer and decided to remodel the whole building. When Katt sat down with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay, he didn't just give an interview, he dropped a nuclear bomb on Hollywood's protected class. This wasn't just a comedian venting about bad sets or stolen jokes. This was a man naming names and pointing fingers at the very top of the food chain. And right there in his crosshairs, once again, was Oprah Winfrey. Katt's central argument was simple and devastating. Oprah isn't just a talk show host. She is a gatekeeper who decides which version of blackness is allowed to sit at the table of success. Katt's rant tapped into a deep-seated frustration that has been bubbling in the culture for years. He suggested that there is a check you have to sign, a moral compromise you have to make to stay in Oprah's good graces. For her, the descent of Oprah is about the death of the gatekeeper era. We are living in a time where a man with a microphone and a YouTube connection can reach more people than a legacy TV network. And Katt used that power to frame Oprah as someone who helps sell a specific, safe narrative of black life to the masses while suppressing the raw, uncut truth. He didn't mince words, calling out the way powerful figures like her allegedly participate in shady industry rituals that keep the real rebels on the outside looking in. The reason this resonated so hard and why it's a pillar of our stand is because Katt isn't interested in being polite. He represents the segment of the black community that is tired of respectability politics. When Katt talks about Oprah, he talks about her as a corporate entity, not a person. He views her as part of a machine that rewards obedient stars and punishes the ones who won't play the game. The viral nature of his claims showed that the public is no longer willing to give icons a free pass just because they've been around forever. People were leaning in, nodding along and saying, "Finally, someone said it." Katt's expose was the ultimate vibe shift. It moved the conversation from "Oprah is a nice lady who gives away cars" to "Oprah is a power player who controls the board." By positioning himself as the truth teller who can't be bought, Katt made Oprah look like the establishment that needs to be overthrown. It wasn't just a comedy set, it was a declaration of independence from the Harpo era. He made it cool to question the Queen, and in doing so, he turned the fall of Oprah from a conspiracy theory into a cultural movement that shows no signs of slowing down. Katt talks in riddles, but Ludacris remembers exactly how the editing room felt. Ludacris, the respectability trap. If you want to understand why hip-hop has a complicated relationship with Oprah, you have to go back to 2006. At the time, Ludacris was on top of the world. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a legitimate movie star co-starring in the Oscar-winning film Crash. He showed up to the Oprah Winfrey Show expecting a celebration of his transition from Dirty South legend to Hollywood A-lister. Instead, he got a public lecture that felt more like a trip to the principal's office than a victory lap. Ludacris later went to the press to air out his grievances, and his experience remains one of the most cited examples of Oprah's respectability politics gone wrong. The beef wasn't just that she disagreed with his lyrics, it was the way she used her power in the editing room. Luda claimed that Oprah spent a significant portion of the interview chastising him for his rap persona and the content of his music. He didn't just sit there and take it, though. He fired back with thoughtful defenses about art, environment, and the reality of the streets. But when the episode actually aired, most of his rebuttals were mysteriously left on the cutting room floor, while her holier-than-thou critiques were kept front and center. It was a classic case of an icon using her platform to control the narrative and make a younger black artist look like he didn't have a leg to stand on. This moment is a massive piece of the Oprah is falling puzzle because it exposed a generational and cultural divide. To Luda and a huge chunk of his audience, Oprah represented a version of black success that felt the need to apologize for or sanitize the more raw elements of black culture to stay palatable for her primary demographic. By coming for a figure as beloved and consistent as Ludacris, she signaled to the hip-hop generation that she wasn't one of them. She was a critic looking down from an ivory tower. Decades later, that resentment hasn't evaporated. In the era of trap music and the global dominance of hip-hop, Oprah's 2006 stance looks less like moral leadership and more like being out of touch. The respectability trap is the idea that you have to act, talk, and dress a certain way to be worthy of respect. And Luda's experience proved that even if you win an Oscar, the gatekeepers might still treat you like a menace. It was a pivotal moment that proved the Queen's Garden had a very high fence, and if your vibe wasn't clean enough, you weren't getting an invite back. It's one thing to critique the lyrics, it's another to ignore the checks. Taraji P. Henson, The Color Purple Blues. If there was ever a moment that made the internet collectively look at Oprah and say, "Wait, you too?" it was the 2023 press run for The Color Purple. Taraji P. Henson, a literal titan of the industry, went on a viral emotional roller coaster that had nothing to do with the movie's script and everything to do with the behind-the-scenes struggle. When Taraji broke down in tears during an interview with Gayle King, talking about how she was tired of being underpaid and undervalued despite her resume, the spotlight didn't just hit the studio, it hit Oprah, the film's executive producer. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about a beautiful musical, it was about why a black Hollywood legend had to fight for basic dignity on a project led by the most powerful black woman in media. The juice got even more concentrated when the details of the production conditions leaked. Taraji revealed that the cast was initially expected to drive themselves to the set in Atlanta in rental cars. A move, she correctly pointed out, was a massive insurance liability and a safety risk. "What do I look like, taking myself to work in a rental car?" she asked, and the culture roared in agreement.
I remember when we first came in and we were doing rehearsal and they put us all in the same space. Like, we didn't have our own dressing rooms at the time and we didn't have no food.
Then came the reports that the actors didn't even have dressing rooms or proper food during rehearsals until they spoke up.
Whenever I heard there was an issue or there was a problem with the cars or there was a problem with the food, I would step in and do whatever I could to make it right.
While Oprah eventually stepped in to fix these issues, the damage to her Queen Mother image was done. People started asking the uncomfortable question, why did Taraji have to call the billionaire producer to get a sandwich and a driver in the first place? This section is vital because it highlights the mogul versus artist tension. In the public's mind, if Oprah is at the helm, things are supposed to be top tier. When they aren't, it looks like a lack of care, or worse, a corporate mindset that prioritizes the budget over the people. The internet didn't care about the studio's logistics. They cared that Shug Avery was out here struggling for a trailer, even though Taraji later clarified that she and Oprah are good, and that Oprah fixed everything the next day. The initial spark ignited a forest fire of criticism. It turned Oprah from a sympathetic figure into a corporate boss who was seemingly asleep at the wheel while her sisters were in the trenches. The fallout from The Color Purple proved that being an icon doesn't exempt you from the new rules of transparency. Fans weren't just mad at Hollywood, they were specifically disappointed in the idea that a black-led production could still feel like an uphill battle for black stars. Taraji's tears became the symbol of a larger fall, not of Oprah's bank account, but of the blind trust the community once placed in her brand. It showed that even when the Queen provides the platform, the workers are no longer afraid to point out when the stage is falling apart. This wasn't a feud. It was an awakening that even the most legendary mentors can be part of the problem if they aren't actively protecting the people they employ. But while Taraji was crying for a driver, 50 Cent was driving the bus right over the legacy. 50 Cent and the selective justice argument. While others might hint at their frustrations through tears or metaphors, 50 Cent has spent years treating Oprah Winfrey like she's a rival rapper in a 2000s-era mixtape war. To 50, Oprah's fall isn't just about bad vibes or production budgets, it's about what he calls selective justice. He has been the loudest voice in a growing chorus of critics who claim that Oprah has a suspicious habit of only putting her weight behind documentaries and takedowns that target powerful black men. Whether he's posting memes on Instagram or doing interviews, 50's message is clear. He thinks Oprah is a tool used by the mainstream to tear down black icons while giving white counterparts a free pass. The tension reached a boiling point when Oprah announced her involvement in a documentary about the sexual assault allegations against Russell Simmons. 50 Cent didn't hold back, taking to social media to ask why she wasn't producing similar exposes on figures like Harvey Weinstein or Jeffrey Epstein. For 50 and his millions of followers, the optics were nasty. He framed Oprah as someone who helps cancel black men to maintain her standing in white-dominated spaces. This narrative tapped into a deep historical sensitivity within the black community regarding the public destruction of black male figures, and 50 used his platform to position Oprah as the face of that betrayal. 50 Cent's crusade against Oprah isn't just about him, it's about a wider gender war in media. He argues that her brand of empowerment feels one-sided, claiming she's quick to listen to the victims of black men, but remains silent or objective when it comes to the crimes of the white elite she rubs elbows with at galas. Even though Oprah eventually stepped away from the Simmons project citing creative differences, the selective justice tag stayed stuck to her name like glue, largely thanks to 50's relentless digital campaigning. In 50's world, Oprah is the ultimate industry fed. By consistently questioning her motives, he has forced his audience to look at her documentaries through a lens of skepticism rather than blind faith. He's not interested in her life class or her book club. He wants to know why the Queen only seems to pick up her scepter when there's a black man to be dethroned. Whether you think 50 is a visionary or just a world-class troll, You can't deny that he successfully planted a seed of doubt in the culture. He made it so that every time Oprah attaches her name to a controversial story, the first question people ask isn't, "What's the truth?" but, "Who is she trying to take down now?" At the end of the day, is this a downfall or just a long overdue feedback loop? The new rule of icons. The thought of the untouchable icon is officially dead, and the debris is scattered all over our social media feeds. For decades, Oprah Winfrey existed in a vacuum of reverence, a space where her word was gospel and her influence was an absolute North Star. But as we've seen through the grievances of Monique, the bluntness of Katt Williams, and the relentless trolling of 50 Cent, that vacuum has been shattered. We aren't seeing a fall in the traditional sense. Oprah's billion-dollar empire isn't going to vanish overnight, but we are witnessing the permanent dismantling of the pedestal. The era where a single gatekeeper could control the narrative of black success is over, replaced by a digital Wild West where the workers, the rebels, and the rivals all have their own microphones. This shift tells us a lot about where we are in 2026. We've moved from an age of blind icon worship to an age of radical accountability. The culture is no longer satisfied with being given a seat at the table. People are now asking who built the table, who's getting fed, and who's being kicked out of the room. When celebrities speak out against Oprah, they aren't just airing personal beef. They are signaling a change in the power dynamic. They are proving that you can challenge the Queen and still have a career, a fan base, and a voice. The Oprah effect used to be about the power of her endorsement. Now, it's increasingly about the power of the pushback against her. This narrative is less about Oprah's personal failures and more about the public's refusal to accept a one-size-fits-all leader. We are living in a decentralized world where auntie energy isn't enough to bypass legitimate questions about labor, gender bias, and corporate gatekeeping. Oprah's legacy will undoubtedly survive, but it will have to coexist with these critiques. The crown hasn't been taken away, but it's definitely being passed around, and the new rule is simple. No matter how big the brand or how legendary the career, nobody gets a free pass anymore. The pedestal is gone, and everyone, even the Queen of Media, is finally standing on level ground with the rest of us. So, what's the final verdict? Is Oprah actually falling, or is the world just finally catching up to the reality behind the brand? The truth is, the Queen of Media isn't going anywhere, but the era of the untouchable icon is officially over. When the culture stops whispering and starts shouting, the power dynamic changes forever. This isn't just a collection of celebrity beefs, it's a cultural audit. Oprah hasn't lost her seat at the table. She's just lost the ability to tell everyone else where to sit. Do you think so too? Subscribe to the channel for more juicy content coming.